And what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove with Rotoballer's official MMA podcast, Tap That. This has been the first show in a bit. We've been on a hiatus as the UFC is taking a break until January 16th. But we are back with an interlude episode. I'm talking to a friend of mine from the University of Kentucky, Kyler Johnson. What's up, Kyler?
How you doing, Brady?
Doing pretty good, man. So for a little bit of background for everybody, me and Kyler were in the same fraternity at UK, Theta Chi. That's how we met back in those bullpen days, Kyler.
Yep. That was some good times.
But you've been up to some other stuff lately. You're now 3-0 as an amateur, and you just won, I believe that was in November,
Yep.
picking up a win against Brett Hurst.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, man, that was your first fight in over 2 years. So what caused that layoff?
Right. So after college, I was training still, and I was supposed to have a fight back. Oh, what was it? I think it was 2018. I had just signed up for the Army. I joined the National Guard, and I was getting ready to ship out to boot camp in February. And I was supposed to have a fight just before that January, or maybe it was December. I'd have to go back and look against, I think, a guy named Ricky Muse. And I trained all up for that. And then he had an injury or something last minute and had to back out of the fight, and they couldn't rematch me with another opponent. So I was hoping to get one last one in before I went to basic training. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And I went out to basic training and went straight from there to OCS. And towards the end of OCS, I actually tore my MCL in my left leg.
Oh.
So that whole year of 2019 was kind of one thing after another. I wasn't able to train much while I was doing all of the basic training, then the OCS. And I come back, have that injury, had to deal with it for a little while. And then I was set to take it. I was putting my name in for a card at the beginning of January 2020. And broke my nose. So about 2 weeks before I was supposed to get on the card. So it was just kind of one thing after another. And then right after that, I had to go to BOLIC, which is your basic officer leaders course, another thing for the Army. And that was another 6-7 months in Missouri, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And then, as you know, that's about when the pandemic hit. And it just was hard to train through there. So I finally got done with that. Came back in July, back to Columbus, Georgia, and started training again here at there's a gym down here, Bad Apple MMA. It's an awesome gym. You ought to check it out if you're ever in the area. And then I was able to stack up enough training time, injury-free, and between Army trainings where I could get a decent fight camp and then take that last one here in November.
So what was the reason for the relocation to Georgia? And, now that you're fighting in Florida, for this last fight and this upcoming one. So what was the reason for the relocation?
So I spent all of my time down here for my first two Army trainings. So I went to basic training down here, stayed down here for OCS, and I met my girlfriend at the time down here as well, and now my wife. So really, that was the whole thing. Is after that, I quit my job back home before I went into the Army. I worked for a construction company there, and eventually I want to end up in a different career path, but that I haven't started on yet. So I was really in between things, and she was down here, and that was the biggest factor for me. So I just wanted to come down here, and we moved in together, and just been working and fighting and living with her down here.
Sounds like a pretty good existence.
Yeah. Can't complain. It's the happiest I've been.
So this most recent fight against Brett Hurst, it was your first fight in 2 years. It was the first fight you've ever taken to the judges' scorecards. With your first two fights ending pretty quickly with round one finishes, what were some of the differences you noticed in your, how you felt in the cage after the big layoff, taking it to another state, and, those kinds of, and all the factors of 2020 playing in?
Right. So there's definitely some rust. You got to shake off after you have that much time being out of the cage. It was over 2 years since I had a fight. So it's just, you kind of have those, a little bit of those jitters that you get rid of the jitters, more fights you take. And a little bit of those came back a little bit since, the layoff. and all. Plus, Florida rules are a little bit different than Kentucky. You have to wear shin pads for amateurs. Um,
Oh,
the rules vary by state, really. Florida's not terrible. Some states they don't even let you ground and pound in
well, that's
amateur
your
fights.
game,
But
man.
exactly, so that like Georgia, I might be mistaken on this, but I don't believe they let you ground and pound in Georgia for amateurs. So in Florida, you got to wear shin guards until I think you have 3 or 4 fights. Then you can take them off. Just so there's some rule changes you have to look out for. But then the biggest thing for that one was, I just wanted to get back comfortable in the cage again. I actually slipped a rib on my left side like a week or so before, and that kind of played a part in it. I wasn't able to really I didn't have those fast twitch reactions I usually have, and I wanted to more or less play it safe, take it to the ground where I feel comfortable, control on the ground, do some damage down there. That's where I really wanted to feel the most comfortable. From here on, I look to expand into some more striking and some more explosive, knockout type finishes. But that was the biggest thing for that, was just kind of shaking off the rust and just trying to get back into the sport again.
Well, so I've watched your 3 fights, and I've seen you rock guys. You throw up sub attempts. You spend a lot of time on top, and you do a lot of damage from ground and pound. And just what you just said about your own stylistic analysis. So, what are some of the? I know you said striking and more finishes, but what are some of the more like finer points you're looking to expand? Like, in the short term and maybe in the longer term, like going forward through 2021.
Right. So 2021, I really want to focus on my stand up. My kickboxing needs some serious work. I don't really throw a whole lot of kicks, and that's a whole big part of the sport, right? So I need to expand on that. If I can start working in some more leg kicks and fast twitch, like deceptive kicks into my game, that would be nice. As always, the wrestling always needs to have work. I didn't wrestle in high school. That's a big regret, but that's always something my takedowns, I'm always striving to work on as well. So I guess for 2021, the biggest takeaways I'm looking for are improving on my kickboxing and then the wrestling as well.
So, I mean, do you see yourself moving forward at welterweight? I mean, it seems like you really comfortably make 170, but it also seems like you far outsize, the 3 opponents that I've seen you face so far at welterweight. So, is the plan to keep going at welterweight?
I, you know, I, I'd like to. 170, it's a little bit of a cut. Like I walk around like usually 190, 195, but 170 is not too bad. If I'm ever in the position where I'm a professional and I'm getting to a higher stage, then I'm going to start trying to drop to 155. But until then, I still feel pretty strong at 170. I'm able to maintain like a decent amount of muscle and endurance without dehydrating myself too terribly. So that's a pretty good fit for me at the moment. But like I said, if the opportunity arises, then I'm definitely going to cut to 55.
Like in Florida, have you noticed like is there just more people training in MMA and with high aspirations in the sport than maybe there are in Kentucky necessarily, because there's a pretty rich history of fighters from Florida? Is there like a stronger competition base there and in Georgia where you're training?
100% for Florida, at least. Florida, you got some of your best gyms down there. With your team Alpha Mills or whatnot down there, and especially Southern Florida, it's a really big sport here. And Georgia, it's about the same as Kentucky. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more people. You got some big promotions down here. Island Fights is a big one down here, and a lot of more. There's a lot bigger group of people that go into the sport down here. Also, they get the people down here that you fight. I feel like they're in a little bit better shape in Kentucky. They get to train outside basically year round. That definitely impacts some things. Kentucky, don't get me wrong, there's some great fighters in Kentucky. Awesome fighters, actually. A couple of the guys that I used to train with back at Four Seasons, have been making some big moves in the Contender Series, and then a couple of guys, Ken Beverly and Harry Hunsucker. But there's there's good fighters from Kentucky, but it's definitely a bigger array of people in Florida. It's a much more valued sport down here.
I was definitely going to bring up Four Seasons at some point. I know you got love for Four Seasons. Everybody I've ever heard from that has ever trained there for any period of time, like, comes away loving it.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a great gym. Michael Donald, nothing but respect for him, the owner. He's an awesome guy, awesome coach, just an absolute beast on the ground. Other coaches is there, and some of the other coaches have branched out their own thing. Michael Seals is starting his own gym there. He's a Four Seasons coach. He ought to be open up here pretty soon. And that's just some really world class caliber athletes that come out of that gym. Gerald Reed, amazing boxing coach, one of the best ones you'll find. The coach is out of Four Seasons. It's really a good place to build a very good basis, especially if you're looking to get into the sport, or even if you're trying to take it to the next level.
So, man, your next fight is coming up January 16th. Am I right on that?
I was looking originally for January 16th to get on that card with the Impact Promotions I was with, but I'm in the process of trying to figure out some life things. Me and my wife are going to Vilseck, Germany here pretty soon. So if anything, I'm going to be looking for the middle of February if we're still here by then, potentially to get on an Island Fights card then. It's a little bit bigger promotion. Maybe be on another Impact card. We'll see. Just kind of at the moment, just trying to train, stay healthy, and see what opportunities come my way.
That's the your Tapology page, right? I don't know if you ever check that out. It says like your confirmed upcoming bout, which at this point does not sound like it is confirmed in the least bit, but it says like it's Elijah Thomas, who that's the guy that just fought that dude Tim Hester for
Right.
that promotion's welterweight belt. So it seems like you've garnered, a decent amount of attention in that short period of time in Florida.
I hope so. That's a little bit funny you brought that up. I guess they matched me up on that card and they put me on it or whatever, confirmed, and I never heard nothing about it. So I appreciate it if they asked me first, but yeah, I have no problem at all fighting Elijah. What's his name? Elijah Thomas.
Yes.
I mean, he looked like a game opponent. I saw him fight Tim. Tim's a beast, but I was a game opponent. I had no problem taking that fight. Just like I said, I have some priorities that I got to take care of first. Moving to another country, trying to figure that out right now, get our orders straight for that. But if they want to set that up, and if we're still here in February, I'd be just fine to take it. It's hopefully I've gathered a little bit of fan base. I know I didn't have the most exciting fight on the card down there, but hopefully I brought something to the stage that some people hadn't seen down there. So I can bring some things to the table, some ground control, some ground and pound that that people find fun to watch.
So yeah, I guess that's the world of amateur mixed martial arts, is find out your own cards that you didn't even know you were on.
Yep.
So is that like to Germany? Is that like an army thing?
It is. My wife is active duty, and she's stationed over there. Being in the guard, my unit was able to work something out, so I can do work for them over there as well. So we're going to be over there on post for the next about a year and 8 months.
Wow. So with so many moving pieces, in your life and trying to get so many of those logistics figured out, like, what are some of your more like concrete goals, like outcome and career wise for MMA over 2021? Especially since it took you so many frustrating occurrences to get back. You got your win in 2020, and now with all the different factors floating around, like, what would you like to accomplish this year?
I'd like to take at least 3 and up to 5 amateur fights this year. I need to find a good gym over there in the Vilseck area in Germany. I know kickboxing is pretty big over there. I haven't found a established MMA gym over there yet, but that's gonna be once we get settled in there, that's gonna be a good opportunity of just unbroken time where I can train, focus on my craft, get better. I want to try to take this pro. I don't want to take it pro this year. I want to have at least 10 fights under my belt amateur fights first before I take it to that next level. But that's the goal for 2021 is getting at least 3 up to 5 amateur fights.
So, were there any opportunities like in your time in the army to like work on any like hand to hand combat or like anything that would like translate to MMA?
Somewhat. So the Army has this combatives program called MACP. I guess it's Modern Army Combatives Program, and basically what it is, it's like your modified jujitsu, at least. So there's levels to it. Level 1 is there's some grappling, and it works up to the level 3 where you're incorporating some strikes in there. You have to go to school to get to level 3. They teach level 1 to most of your basic trainees, and and like your training for whatever your skill set is that you come into the Army for. So we did some basic grappling. We did, basic training. We did like a little tournament, right, where you're grappling and winner advances type thing. So it's kind of like gi jujitsu because you're wearing the uniform as well. There's just no strikes, and you can throw submissions. It's just mainly positions and submissions.
Huh. Well, that's a yeah. I mean, like how was there added rust coming in, like with your first fight being after so much time in the army, or did you say that you picked up a little quicker than maybe you expected to?
There was definitely rust. There still is rust. I'm still shaking it off. When you take that long off training and then you come back and you're having to train with injuries, it's hard to get back to where you were after taking off like 8 months to a year. So definitely some rust, but it's starting to come back, and all it is consistency. Once you can start stacking those consistent days in the gym, you start going once, twice a day for a good 3-4 weeks in a row, you start feeling some things come back that you kind of forgot about, right? And you see some things and oh, I remember how to do that. Or you see some chokes that used to be your go-tos that you like forgot about, and things just kind of start coming back for you, and your body positioning, the feel of where your weight distribution is, like when you're on top of somebody and controlling. Just it takes some time to come back, but all it takes is consistency.
So, in all this time, have you gotten to follow like any UFC, Bellator, like MMA throughout 2020?
To be honest, I haven't that much. The biggest figure I've followed right now is just my coach at the gym down here, Joseph Creer. He's taken his last couple fights in Bellator. We helped him get ready for that, and I haven't had too much of a chance to really look at the main stage fighters this year.
Well, so here I'll ask you this: who are your top 5 favorite fighters of all time, like to watch as an influence to your own fighting, like top 5 in that respect?
Oh man,
It's
let me think
never
here.
easy.
That's a good one. I'm gonna have to put Johnny Bone Jones as number 1. The man's he's something else. He's never been beat. He has vicious ground and pound, just some of the most vicious elbows I've ever seen on somebody. And he's just an athletic specimen.
Unparalleled talent for
Unparalleled
sure.
talent. Yep.
Regardless of what else anybody has, anything else anyone has to say about him, unparalleled talent, something we've never seen before.
100%, 100%. Questionable life decisions, maybe, but as when it comes to the octagon, he's unmatched in my opinion. Let's see. I'm gonna have to put Khabib in there as well. I kind of try to model some of my fighting off of him. Just I think it's pretty crazy how he can just put his hands on somebody and they're gonna end up on the ground and they're not gonna get back up again. That's a scary thing to deal with. Granted, you might not have to worry about like that one punch knockout power that you might with like some other opponents, but that's a very scary thing, like to go in the ring with somebody that if like they get close enough to touch you, that you're going to end up on your back for like basically the remainder of the fight.
Yeah, it's a guy that when he decides to impose his will, it's not up to you.
Right,
He gets a hold of you. Whatever he wants to do is going to happen.
Yep, exactly. And that's a scary thing. So this is of all time, correct? My list of all time.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna have to toss Chuck Liddell in there too. He was just one of the original ones that got the UFC like made it popular and a thing in the first place. You know, he's going to put his strong right hand on you, and he was going to try to knock you out. He was just an awesome fighter to watch, and he really helped the sport like make a name for itself. He's definitely one of my favorites.
Everybody knew the Iceman. Everybody knew that guy and that look. That was a very like iconic look for like those days of the UFC when people were just starting to tune in and like, you know, watch like stuff on Spike TV. Like very distinctive, iconic look for sure.
Right, exactly. And then like that whole, you know, the controversy between him and Tito Ortiz, you know, that drama and that how they kept rematching each other. That really garnered a lot of attention, I feel like, and made it popular.
Oh yeah, everybody loved to follow that.
Yep, yep. So let's see. Was that three so far?
Yep.
Ooh, Demetrius Johnson. I'm gonna put him Mighty Mouse.
Okay.
Toss him in there. He's just his footwork, his unpredictability, as quick as he is, pound for pound. I think he's got to be one of the best. You know, he's one of my favorites to watch. I like watching a lot of the lighter fighters. They're a lot more technical, a lot quicker, a lot sharper. You know, than maybe some of your heavyweights. And so, you know, that's as a heavier fighter, I try to model that because if I can get that way, being heavier, that's gonna be hard to deal with, right? So, you know, but he's incredible to watch. You know, you never know what's gonna come, and as light as he is on his feet, he's so fast. He's really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, dude, he's like you see him on a lot of like you know, greatest of all time lists, but you don't necessarily see him on a lot of like people's favorites lists. But I you know, I think that the lighter fighters definitely deserve more credit than they get popularity wise. But you know, Davison Figueiredo is kind of starting to change that the way he's been fighting. But you know, for so long, you know, how long was Joseph Benavidez like number 2 on the flyweight rankings, like through so many years? And, you know, it just didn't garner the kind of fan attention that maybe that level of skill deserved. And, you know, now with Figueredo, now people are starting to pay attention and, you know, see that guy as one of the greatest pound for pound fighters in the world. But Demetrius Johnson, I mean, had you know, a very, one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant stretches as a champion that we've ever seen.
Yep, yep. Yeah, definitely worth paying attention to, in my opinion. You know, they don't have the big slugging power of the heavyweights, which everybody loves always to watch that. But I think you can really, for people that appreciate the sport, I think watching the lightweights is probably more entertaining for me than it is watching the heavyweights.
And the speed, you know, the just the volume of strikes that they pump out, and you know how many leg kicks they hit each other with, and just straight rights and all that stuff. The wrestling and the grappling at those lighter weights, you know, like, you know, it's kind of like watching Nick Diaz and Diego Sanchez back in the day, except like on fast forward, you know, when some of those
Yep,
guys are grappling.
yep, 100%. And like for me at least, it's, you know, if I see some heavyweights fight and one of them, like, you know, slips a lucky shot in there, maybe lucky, maybe not lucky, but the one shot knockout, you know, it's like, well, is he really the better fighter, or was he just better that day? For me, there's really something to see, you know, when you watch a little guy just like bit by bit, slowly and technically pick apart his opponent, you know, not with just the one big strike, but just, you know, keep shutting things down, and just pick them apart bit by bit. That's a beautiful thing for me to see.
So when we make like DFS and betting picks on this show, typically I usually give outcomes like out of 100, and that's what heavyweight fights. I mean, even if it's like Derek Lewis versus Stipe, it'll end up being like, well, I mean, like, you know, Stipe probably wins most of these, but I see Derek Lewis landing a big shot, you know, maybe 40 times out of it, maybe 35 times out of 100. But when there's a dominant, like, bantamweight, featherweight, flyweight champion, or, you know, any of the women's classes like that, it's like, dude, I don't know how they're going to pull out a victory. There's like out of 100 times, I see them losing on the judges' scorecards decisively about 99 times.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a much more sure. Well, nothing's ever a sure thing, but it's much more in the direction of being a sure thing.
All right, so who rounds out the list at number 5?
I'm gonna have to go with Conor McGregor. I mean, I really like the guy. You know, I'd love to see him take a comeback into the sport, and he's he's very unorthodox in the way that he fights, but he has a killer left hand. His timing is impeccable, and it's of course his ground game. You can say what you want about it; it's decent, but it's not to the caliber of some other fighters. In the UFC, but his striking for me, that's as crisp as it is, and his precise timing. That's really a fun thing for me to watch. Well, along with his shit talking, that's part of why everybody loves him, of course. But I think he's very fun to watch.
Well, dude, the funny thing about McGregor is that his power clearly is different level. When he hits somebody, it clearly does something different. It's like Ngannou at that weight class. It clearly shocks people. He's a counter striker, and yet,
Right.
and everybody knows that. And yet he will say stuff to you leading up to a fight that like what he was able to do to Aldo before that fight, and it
Yep.
makes Aldo so mad that it's like, dude, don't rush in. He's gonna try to counter strike. It's like, I just want to hit him so bad. It's like, dude, I can't believe he is able to do this to so many people. But there hasn't been a lot of there hasn't been a lot of that leading up to this Poirier rematch.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't followed that too closely, but it is crazy how he's able to get people out of character like that and get in their heads and then make them do what he wants them to do. And part of that, like he's a very strong guy. I mean, he's got a lot of power behind his shots. But he also it's where he places them, in my opinion. Just how he puts them just perfectly on the jaw or wherever he's aiming for. That's the power and precision. That's the deadly combo.
So I know you haven't been following a lot of MMA over the past year, but with the McGregor Poirier rematch coming up on the 23rd for UFC 257, how do you see that fight possibly playing out?
That's gonna be a fun fight. I like Dustin Poirier as well. Um, I'm definitely. I think this is gonna be McGregor's chance to kind of like. I feel like he kind of lost some credibility after the Floyd fight and after the Khabib fight, and I see this as his way to kind of make his way back into the game, and I don't see him passing up that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, with Khabib's sort of retirement, who knows what's actually going to happen with that? But now there's a mad dash between Connor and Oliveira and Gaethje and Poirier, and I mean, Tony's going to have to get a few more but Michael
Right.
Chandler now in the UFC from Bellator, and like this is his real chance to like recapture the belt. And I'm sure a lot of us thought that like as long as Khabib was there, that was not a realistic possibility.
Right. Yeah, but if Khabib steps out, then it's really up for grabs. Like you said, for Tony Ferguson, I don't think he's done yet. And Justin Gaethje, he hurts people. It was really surprising to me the way that his fight with Khabib played out the way it did. I thought he was going to have a little more of a say in it. But with Khabib stepping out, I'd say don't count out Gaethje and don't count out Ferguson either.
Yeah, it was interesting with like Gaethje and Khabib. It's like, I thought Gaethje would come out, boxing, trying to do damage, kind of, the way Ali Aquinta was able to find some success, throwing leg kicks. I thought but I think Khabib's wrestling must be so unhumanly good that it gets in the striker's head. And it's like, so they're afraid to throw the leg kicks because the second he grabs on your ankle, that's the next 15 minutes flying by in your head.
Right, exactly. It makes them hesitant to commit on a strike. They throw a big right hand, big left hand, big kick, and that gives the opening that he needs to take a shot, get inside, and grab a hold of their legs. And just once he has them on the ground, there is zero space. He takes away every little bit of space, and it just makes it close to impossible to get back up to your feet from there.
Well, all right, folks, that is it for this episode of Tap That, this interlude episode with Kyler Johnson. We're going to have a couple more of these coming up, and then we'll have a few shows leading up to the 3-event week the UFC is putting on between the 16th and the 23rd. With me today was my friend and Florida, Georgia amateur fighter, Kyler Johnson. He's now 3-0. Hey, thanks for being here today, Kyler.
Hey, thank you, Brady. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely, man. It was a lot of fun. And so, everybody, tune into this. We appreciate that. And tune into all upcoming episodes. Have yourselves a great beginning to 2021. And as always, enjoy the fights that are coming up.